got a feeling deep inside that you've been lying about where you've been at night. Oh, I've got a feeling, so you better learn to treat me right.
Okay, welcome back everybody. This is Volume 5 of the Reckoning Monologues. And today we're talking about another thread that came up on the forums. This one about the Magus class. And the OP begins. I'm posting this in a calm and constructive spirit, he says, because I genuinely believe that the Magus is one of the most interesting and unique classes in Warhammer Online. I suppose that's true, but everybody probably feels that way about their particular class. It has a strong identity.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
It has a strong identity, he says, and a distinct play style.
Get him, boys!
Yeah, that's how it should have went. Okay, a powerful visual presence.
Shit, you couldn't. When I took her home, my mother put newspapers on the floor.
And a lot of potential on paper. Okay, I had nothing for that one, so, well, wait, this will fit. She had potential, I guess. Alright, the issue is not the class identity itself, he continues. Where it becomes more problematic is when the core constraint is stacked with too many others. The core constraint is stacked with too many others. So what is the core constraint? Too many static abilities. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, for people playing a healing Archmage. Too many static abilities. I've talked about that before. I mean, I have an Archmage. Sure, it's only level 55, but still. Too many situations where you have to overexpose yourself. There's a joke there if I wanted to do it. Too many situations where you have to overexpose yourself. What he's talking about, of course, is line of sight to the opposing range classes or even the melee DPS classes. That you have to be out there where you can see. I mean, that's true, man. That's true of any range class. You have to be able to see your target. And if you can see your target, it's just a fundamental aspect of range combat that if you can see your target can see you. I don't see any way in game to fix that other than just making use of the available terrain to block line of sight and disrupt attacks that are coming your way. He goes on to say, too few truly reliable tools to have a strong impact in fast-moving group fights. Okay, I admit up front, I don't know every ability that a Magus has and what every ability does that a Magus has, but I do know small unit combat in the game as it applies to Warhammer Online, and fast-moving group fights by definition are going to be fast-moving, which means you have to be a part of it. You have to get out there and put yourself at risk. You can't win a fight unless you put yourself in some form of risk. So I don't really agree with the baseline here that the tools of a Magus are constraining simply because they make you A, be visible to your target, and B, have to be involved at a certain distance to be able to affect the battle that's going on around you. And even given the core constraint, as he said, of not enough mobility, is the basic argument. Not enough mobility. And again, I have made that argument about Archmages. I did offer a solution in one particular area, but I won't get into that now. But anyway, I've made that argument about Archmages. And in the end, several abilities that exist but are rarely or never used simply because they are too difficult to get value from. Alright, now this particular point, again, I have to admit, not knowing every ability that a Magus has, I have to take the guy's word for it. But particular attacks that rarely get used. That's true, I think, in every class. Take a Blackguard, for example. You know, playing a blackguard is like playing a piano. There are so many abilities that a blackguard has, and all of them, to some degree, all of them are good. And but that doesn't mean you're going to use all of them in any given fight. You know, you have to, for all the classes that I do play, that I do have established characters. You know, there is a base rotation that you rely on, and when every fight begins and every fight you get into, there's you know, a natural progression of the attacks that you make in order to try to get an advantage over whatever target you're hitting. And once you establish that, then you can alternate. You can go to different attacks based on the situation. For example, on a Swordmaster, the parry buff. Okay, you don't always use the parry buff because not every target you're going to be hitting is going to require a parry buff. That's something that you hold in your back pocket till you go up against another melee class, like particularly a Witch Elf. He gives a specific example here. Chaotic Rift. 1, he says you have to be far too close to the front line. I do not see that as a valid complaint, even for a ranged class, that you have to be too close to the front line. At some point, you're going to have to be close to the front line if you truly want to be effective. I have a Shadow Warrior, and I've played it extensively in scenarios, and I get what he's saying, but sometimes it just is what it is. The cast time is too long.
You don't say!
During that time, the target or enemy group moves while you stay stuck in place. Well, there's one way to get around that one. I mean, as I understand the system as it's constructed, that when you launch or initiate an attack against a target, and subsequent to the attack starting, if the target moves out of range, the attack continues, because it was in range at the beginning until the attack cycle completes. If you are playing in a more fragile setup, you get punished immediately. Well, there are multiple reasons for that. He's saying you get punished for being in a more fragile setup. All of us have found ourselves in fragile setups.
Well, that's all the time we have.
Join us next time on...
And you're playing a Magus, which is a DPS class, and people are going to want to take you out, just to deprive your side of the abilities that you do bring to the table. And you know, a Magus can be very defensive anyway. I mean, I've gone up against Maguses that, I mean, it appears, at least on the surface and in watching the subsequent videos, that they've mitigated more damage than a freaking Chosen. Maybe not that bad, but you know, but they can be defensive. So again, I don't see this as, given the style of the game, the nature of the game, I don't really see this as a valid complaint that sometimes you're going to get out there and you're going to get whacked, because sometimes you're going to get out there and you're going to get whacked.
What if they come in a different door?
The OP goes on to say the Magus is exciting in concept but too limited in execution. Now I know I'm basing my theory crafting here on the fact that I have fought over the years on my Swordmaster, my White Lion, and even my Shadow Warrior. I have fought against a lot of Maguses, and there's a pattern recognition that goes into fighting each individual class on the opposing side, that after a while you get to understand what it is they're doing and how to combat it, right? How to counter it. And I have never thought that a Magus was too limited in execution. There's a particular point that will come up in a little bit that I'll make about one of the abilities that a Magus has, but too limited, I don't think that's true. I think a Magus that is well spec'd, well geared, especially if they're in defense spec, can hold their own. As they are, they can hold their own. But he goes on to make a few other points. You can feel that it could have a much richer, more active, and more impactful role in group play. Now that is a great sentence, man. Let me try that again. You can feel that it could have a much richer, more active, and more impactful role in group play, but it is held back by an accumulation of constraints that make the gameplay too rigid. Oh my god, I hope somebody's listening. Alright. Anyway, what he's saying here is that his class needs a buff. That's basically the whole argument. His class needs a buff. So, little filler video for some commentary. You know, I admire the guy's passion. I really do. He's passionate about his class, and he wants to see his class do better. But all players in this game, or at least a majority of players in this game, want the same thing. They want their particular favorite class buffed. And whichever class they're having problems with on the opposing side, they want that one nerfed. And that argument went on a long time here when it came to Witch Elves. I mean, everybody, this is a few years back, I was leveling my Witch Elf. But there were a lot of people who were on the forums complaining about Witch Elves this, Witch Elves that. They're too strong. They mitigate too much damage. You can't kill them. They can get away to, just all kinds of stuff, man. And it finally led to a nerf of the Witch Elf. There's no more ranged attack. The finisher, or the closing, what do you want to call it? The closing attack, it's no longer there. And it's no longer there because enough people bitched about it. Alright. The OP goes on to say, make some abilities less static. Now, I did make that argument in regard to an Archmage, and that's why I put the Archmage in the title of this little video. Because, I made a suggestion about Archmages once, that they were too static and how to address that. It never took place, but I do at least get what he's talking about. Revisit the cast time, our usage conditions of key skills. Revisit the cast time, that's, I think, a bit much to ask in any class, particularly when you're focusing on just one. And the cast times are meant to help balance abilities that can be, at times at least, overpowering, and keep the use of that particular ability at some sort of fair medium to everybody else. Allow certain abilities to function better in group and our warband play. Well, this argument was also made about Witch Elves only on the destruction side of the house. It was argued at one time that Witch Elves had little to no utility in a warband. Now, my answer to that, as a Witch Elf player, has always been, so, you don't need a fracking warband, man. But for those who do want to play in a warband with a Witch Elf, that was a common refrain, right? That there was no real utility and they needed to do something about it. Well, I disagreed, and to my knowledge, they haven't really addressed the warband value of a Witch Elf because they're better solo or in groups, six-man groups. That's what they're made for. Alright, give real value again to skills that are currently underused. Now he's talking about taking individual abilities and buffing those individual abilities, simply to, hopefully, so that more people will use them. Is that really necessary? The Magus players may want to take, exception to what I'm saying, but is that really necessary? Preserve the Magus identity. Sorry, I was just remembering the joke at the beginning of the video. Okay, preserve the Magus identity, but with less rigidity in execution. Man, this guy's good. I have to give this guy credit when it comes to his writing. This guy's good. Alright, one response, Stark says, disarm should be 5 seconds.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Yeah, no. I don't believe a Magus should have a disarm at all. And this was the one specific ability I was referred to earlier when I said I was going to discuss it. It's never made any sense to me that certain classes on the destruction side would have a disarm. And a Magus is one of them. He's got a stick in his hand. And guys are coming at him with big giant broadswords. And are you kidding me, man? He's going to take a stick and knock that broadside or knock that broadsword out of somebody's hand. Alright. And finally, Demicus asks, who will win? The religious man and his pious restoration, or the Magus and his 10 dots and 100 DPS AoE? Fair question. A Magus, I guess, does have 10 dots and 100 DPS AoE. I don't know if he means to say 100% or if he's talking about I don't know if he's exactly referring to the range or the effectiveness, but still, a Magus can dot you up just like a Sork, and it can be most aggravating as a melee DPS class player. It can be most aggravating to go up against that. So, you know, who would win? And he's making reference to the warrior priest, a religious man, and his pious restoration. I suppose that's also a complaint about pious restoration, but whatever, man. I think the Magus class, for Magus players, okay, maybe there's something that could be tweaked, but you don't need to redefine the entire class in an attempt to make it effective, because the class is already effective. And I said this, here, I put it up. I said before that every class in this game is good and every class in this game sucks. It depends on what you do with it. And I'll just repeat this. Every player wants his or her class buffed and every other class nerfed. That's been a constant through time here in the Warhammer universe. Okay. Thank you all very much for watching. This episode ran a bit long, however, I do hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can follow me on YouTube, Martok at Martok77. I would appreciate it. It's 100% free. And speaking of 100% free, follow me on Twitch. No money required over there. Leave a like and a comment. Come on, man. And as always, thanks for watching.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.